Okay.
Good evening, Ishita Media viewers. This is Hemamalini. Today, we're going to discuss about our US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order restricting immigrant workers in the country. Let's do the analysis and today with our guest, Attorney Adaikala Mary, Law Officers of Mary Kennedy LLC. Hello, ma'am. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம். எப்படி இருக்கீங்க?
நல்லா இருக்கேன்.
Okay. So I think we can நம்ம தமிழ்லயும் பேசலாம், but the thing is today we have to talk in English, so that it will reach more people. So that's the reason actually. So we have actually lots of questions about the executive order. Today we will focus on a few questions to clear the ambiguity that is prevailing. I'm sure everyone affected by the executive order would have read this multiple times. In short, we would like to hear it from you about the impact that it is causing across the visa categories. Can you please share a few words for that?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very sorry, because on top of the pandemic that's already happening, this is not an easy, a phase for any non-immigrants. Already, I have seen, hundreds and thousands of them.
Yes.
Already there, the stress and whatever they go through with all those, insecurities that is upon surrounding all these visas. On top of it, this executive order is not something to be welcomed at this pandemic situation. Actually, I'm very sorry for what they have to go through on this part of it.
Yeah.
And so coming back to that, I know, it's already discussed, and so many people would have read again and again, and they don't really need an attorney to explain it again about that. But just very brief, this one is it got effective from today, that is June 24th, and it's going to be the last date as of now is going to be December 31st, but still, there is a provision which says, it might be extended depending on the situations and everything. And those the non-immigrant, particularly with our Indian community that has been affected, the H and L category of people, more of people. And on top of it, the one saddening this one is about the dependents as well.
Yeah.
So, there are situations where honestly there are people, even the H1B would have been over here, but the H4 would have, even I have a client who, who was sharing an experience that H4 has been stuck because, she went for for the loss of her dad, and then she was not able to, the consulates are closed, but now after the executive order, it's very sad that, she to wait till December 31st. And when I was going through all these ALAs, the latest update of what is happening, they said very many documents talking about, the impact and how, harsh this executive order is and what are the measures. Still, it's very, we just got it, and then, it's very few days. And so there are so much of analysis that has to be done before they come up with what's going to be the measure that is going to be taken and involved in this. But definitely, Ela had said, whatever the maximum, it's not the complete executive order can be challenged. That we have to keep in mind. There's no way that the complete order will be, declared null and void or anything by the court as well. But at the same time, it can be broken into the parts where, whatever can be challenged, that can be, done by some of the, the ALA and other, organization which are related to the, the immigrant community as such, I would say. So that's where we are. And as I said, the most impacted is the H and the L category of the non-immigrant visas.
Yeah. So let's talk about the visa holders currently living in USA who has applied for extension, and they're going to be really very impacted, or how it's going to be actually like.
One is it's completely only for non-immigrant visas outside United States. So that has to be very specific. There is nothing of any change at this point of time to anyone who has been already in US. Say that any H1B extensions can be done, amendments can be done, transfers can be done, it's going to be the same as it was before June 24th. So there's no any other changes that is involved in here. So it's only the, the people who have to travel and who has been outside the countries, and the consulates are not going to be allowed, even say they are going to be opening up sooner or later, and they cannot even, go apply for a visa stamping till December. It's not that they can go for stamping and then not be able to enter, but it's completely that they cannot be allowed even with the consulates unless there is, any other discretion that's going to be very, very hard, to strip on the, order that says so. But other than that, within the US, even if there is an H4 and they have an earlier H1B, that can be converted, and any other, and also on, as you're on the specific question, we can also add it up saying that how about the new H1B cap cases, which has a deadline of June 30th that is going to be filed. There is nothing as of now, as long as, it's going to be a change of status, or even if it's going to be a consular approval. There is, earlier there was, so many news that was happening that the complete new H1Bs will be stopped from filing for the 2021 cap season, but it was not that. So you are allowed to, file the H1Bs. The, if at all, they would have been earlier to October 1st, they would have been allowed to go for the visa, but now they have to, assuming that the H1B is approved, they are going to wait till December 31st, and only after that. So the impact is at this point of time a 3 months period for the people who are applying through the consulate, but we have to wait and see how things are going to be after that.
Yes.
Mhm.
With current situation, we have seen so many layoffs, and every H1 visa holders needs to find a job within 60 to 90 days, and they have to do the transfers as well. How the transfers are going to be affected actually? Can you please explain about that?
Yeah, so we have to be, it's very specific. It's going to be 60 days once the layoff has happened.
Okay.
So Ayla filed a lawsuit when there was, the actual, national emergency was going on, and, but still, these lawsuits take a long more of
Yeah.
time,
Yes.
unless, they can just go for an injection or any other thing. But again, there was no update onto that, but the 60 days remains in effect the same, which
Okay.
was granted even before that. So when there is a layoff, it's going to be the 60 days, and there is no other, any other thing. Understanding the pandemic was given, so they have to find a new employer where they can go for a H1B transfer. Understanding the situation with all those unemployment and everything, but still, as all the business and the tech field understands that these H1B people are very specialized in their category of filing. So obviously, when there is a need, I know, like, it's not limited to software alone.
Yeah.
There is specialty occupation that's involved everywhere, and their demand is still there. It's not like unemployment
Yeah.
can be an prevalent in other places, but still, the specialty occupations are still, there is a demand for companies and businesses where they have to take these people. So they have to look forward for any other opportunities, options, but nothing as of now more than the 60 days can be avoided at this point of time. They have to find it. In worst case, if they're not able to, file within the 60 days, what we are advising them is to convert themselves to a visitor visa, not to remain in the country without, having any reason for it, because the flights are not fully operational to India. So with that, with only in a few of Air India flights that's happening, they feel there is a huge rush, and so for them, we are advising them to go for a business as a visitor visa, B2 visa, so that they can just be safer to continue to stay. But 60 days is the limit, if that is the question that you had asked for.
That's really critical for them. So sad, actually.
That's right.
Yeah. So now we have a few of them who have got their approvals but stuck in their home countries. Like, what will be their situation even after reopening of consulates and embassy in their respective countries, and what are the difficulties like they are going to face to get their visa stampings? Like, it's really. Yeah, can you please share a few words about that?
Yeah, sure. It's not only the new H1Bs, with the executive order, it's not the new H1Bs that is happening. So people who had traveled, in the month of March, 50, just for any other reason, for family vacation, emergencies, and everything. This happened in a time frame of 2 weeks. The consulates completely shut down, and they would have even booked an appointment before leaving in case if they had planned for it. And so they were stuck already in India with an assumption once the consulate is going to be opened, and they were waiting for the stamping and to return back to US. But now, it seems, very hard when looking back, so they have a job which most of the time they were able to work from India with all the remote, work options. But the problem is, it's extended till December. It's not only for the new H1Bs if there is any restrictions. Even if it is has been an extension and they would have outside the country, but now even after opening up the consulate, it's not going to be. They will be going for a stamping actually. In few cases, even one of my client, his employee, he got a 221G, and then the passport was supposed to be submitted when they cleared up the 221G actually. And he submitted the passport. Unfortunately, the stamping was done. It was just immediately closed. Even that was a question now. If because the executive order is very clear that the 24th should be the date that the stamping on the passport should be there. So now, even though he's eligible, actually, technically speaking, the stamping is not in the passport. In the passport is with the consulate, and they are closed for this pandemic reason. So that's a big question whether even for those candidates will be, stamp their passport and they will be able to come over here.
Yeah, it's really, I know. Like, moving to next question, like, the H1B visa motivated international students to come and study in US, right? But if the college is under lockdown conditions and with the uncertainty of H1B visa for this year, and how will this affect the student visa holders? Like,
So, see, already there is a lot of things the students has been going through, with the lottery system, and they have to do. I know people, who had been doing two masters and all those other criteria, still they will not be picked up on the lottery and everything on top of it. Definitely, this is a very, crucial thing. The one exemption was like, they are not, the executive order exemption is for the F1 visa. So if they had been traveling out of country, and then they can always come back, it's not applicable to them. So if they had been there, with the colleges closed down and they had been, allowed to go, retaining their I-20, they can always come back, travel back to. There is no restrictions on that. It's one good thing that's happening. And also, if they have applied with the new H1B and they have been selected in the lottery system and everything, and so if they are getting applied, as long as they had been asked for a change of status, because this has come in June 24th. We started the H1B filing from April 1st, actually. So already, most of them would have decided what they want to choose in the H1B. In for some reason, if they had chosen to be on the consulate approval, in some cases, they would have a long, OPT period, which they don't want to, just let it go. So they would prefer to be on the OPT, still want to retain the H1B. So in those cases, specific to individuals, choices and needs, we would have opted for a consulate approval. So now there's no way that you can change for a petition that has been already submitted. So for them, it's a big question because they would have thought, I can just go back and get my stamping done and come back. But now, we have just have to wait and see. But one of the things I would suggest in all these is, in worst case, there is if you're in US actually within the United States, and then for any other reason you had gone for a consulate approval at the earlier point of time, not understanding, all these actually, not expecting. But I would say, if they had been on a H4, and even in the, if they are able to maintain their status well, they can go for an amendment once the underlying H1B has been approved, so that there is no need for them to look for a consulate actually, and then they can just continue to amend the petition so that they can have the change of status at a later point of time and then go for it.
That's nice. Actually, one of our viewer, he actually sent one question. Actually, that is like, my wife is in India with a valid H4 visa stamped till end of 2021. Can she travel to us after presidential EVO and my wife transfer is not filed? I got the visa extension by premium. Will it affect her transfer or something? Like he asked actually, a viewer.
Okay, so the question is the wife is on a H4 and she's in India, but there is a H1B filed already over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I know, like, if she is out of country, I am assuming that H1B transfer, even though it has been filed to have been a consulate approval, because you can file for an H1B extension of stay only if the person is in within the United States. So I'm assuming that she is in India on a H4. If she is currently on H4, the better part is the transfer will be approved, but it will be on a consulate approval. There's no way that they would have expected an extension of status. But understanding now, the best option is like if she travels back to US on the H4, as she has a valid H4 stamping in her passport, and so once she comes over here, this H1B transfer, assuming it is approved as a consulate approval at later point of time, as I said earlier to my question, they can go for an amendment to extend the stay of the person, but it's again going to be paying the fees and everything, but it is possible actually.
Um, then, with the current economic and labor conditions, finding a job is really difficult actually. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
yeah. With the current economic and labor conditions, finding a job is difficult. What immediate actions to be taken by the visa holders? Then who could not able to find the job within the allotted time for the visa categories? Like, is there any like?
It's very hard. It's upon them to take some proactive measures, to retain the job, and like I don't see that, and any exceptions are not allowed over here, and like I just thought, at the end of the session, probably, like we can talk about what additional, even though we talk about, so the major factor that has been focused is only about the consulate and the approval actually. But in top of that, like executive order, like there are some more, that is going to come, that is even more, like it's going to be very strict, as some of them like have, we know that the last week they with the IT serve, the settlement agreement that happened with the USCIS with issued a memo that based on that, like they're not going to be demanding the employer employee relationship on a third party, as well as the client documentations, like how much it will be, like it's not, the itineraries has to be provided for each and everything. Doesn't mean that you can just file it without, just there is difference, different of opinions among attorneys itself, like how far we are going to substantiate it, rather than just sending the documents out or anything, as long as the employer is in compliance with the like the period of time that they are going to be. But still this executive order has put in a word that how the interim order they are planning to bring it up, which is going to be very, very harsh when looking back actually. Some of the questions and the validity they raised over there was how they are going to bring up that interim program is how any person who's on an EB3 and an EB2, like visas, which has already been, like they would have been, the firm would have been approved, as well as even I-140 is approved, and H1B, how, the interim order is going to be, bringing up measures where, there are a lot more an employer has to substantiate, where how there is no replacement of any US workers. So I am kind of assuming, the perm is going to be made, like even more with all the stringent measures that can be taken as well, towards how strict it's going to come up with. So yeah, so all these are in pipeline. That's what the executives or says that, as well as like how like an very interim about they are going to say that about even an employer-employee relationship, how they are going to redefine. They agreed with the settlement agreement earlier last week, but it's not going to be even more stringent measures can be brought in back in place. So it's really like very seriously thinking it's not going to be, and how this talk was already there in case of, even though you're in compliance with the level 2 of an the salary and everything, but how they want to bring it up, saying that how much higher the employer is willing to pay for an H1B employee is the criteria that will be considered when approving the H1s and everything. So it is really not an like something. The release says that there is a lot of things that's going to be coming up soon.
So, will it be extended after December again, or how it's going to?
So there is, like the
I know,
intelligence.
but it's a viewer's question.
Yeah.
Of course, what is exactly happening, but it's like a viewer's question. So,
Yeah, actually, some of the leads, leading attorneys, senior attorneys are saying there is a possibility that is going to be extended. Actually, yeah, December. But again, I would say, nothing can be done, like fast to happen. But at the same time, it depends on how the market is going to be doing better. Actually,
yeah,
makes
exactly.
a lot of difference when in 2008 and 7, when there was recession going on, and after that, in 2009, you don't see that much of a denials actually. So you have to be, understanding that, how the like economy is going to be doing based on that they are going to decide on it.
So, is there an appeal opinions for those who cannot travel back to their country? Is there any? Is there an appeal opinions like for those who cannot travel back to their country?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting you.
As we spoke earlier, like with the current economic and labor conditions, finding a job is difficult, right? So, we could not able to find the job within the allotted time for their visa categories. So is there an appeal opinions for those who cannot travel back to their country?
Yeah, so the as I said, like it's better as long as they couldn't find it within the 60 days. I always say that, like just maintaining your status is very, like important, as long as like, like see the 179 days is the criteria where the ban is going to be, pay for 179 days, and then after the 180 days, if you're going to leave the country, then the 3 years ban comes into effect after that. So, but I would say, like as long as much as possible, whatever the efforts you can take is to maintain your status, and if you're not able to find something within the 60 days, as I said, take some measures where you can, like prove that at later point of time when you're going for consulate stamping and other criteria, like just to show that, like even though you couldn't be able to find your a job, and then you made, and there was no the travel ban, there was no flight to your home country, but you made a measure to, because the visitor visa online forms are available, and you just pay the fees, and then just tell them that this is your only intention to change your status. So that should be the best thing to take it, actually.
Okay. Actually, again, we are moving to our viewers' questions. If kids are a U.S. citizen and mother in Indian passport, will there be any consideration?
No, it was very clear, just the eligibility of the, U.S. citizen children is not going to be an exception. As long as the adult is a non-immigrant, it's going to be the same. Yeah.
Thank you. So, how an employer should act on the prevent or lose on their visa caps actually?
So,
The visa caps, regarding the visa caps, how an employer should act on prevent on or lose on their visa caps. Um, there will be some, yeah, this much category they have to, yeah, regarding the caps I'm talking about.
Yeah, the cap filing, like, see, obviously, like, there were more number of cases when, our, even the registration selection, when they did it in March, it was not that, the economy was not. So considering that there was so much of, at least closer to 20, 10 to 20% of the selected people has not been applied for. And at this point of time, there is no way that, like, we are just sending out a notice to the USCIS saying that even though they had been selected into the registration, but they can be filed. There are many various reasons. One is definitely the slowing down of the economy and unemployment and everything. So that is considered a valid reason. So, like, if the employer has filed for, 10, which is has been picked up, and if they are not able to file for the two or three, it is very understandably, like, at this point of time, reasonable on the employer side. But again, it's better to, in case if they have an employee that has been picked up in the cap, but for whatever reasons the employee couldn't, join the company. At this time, they are not demanding any reasoning or, like, anything onto that. But, if there is some, earlier itself, they said in various times, as well as issued all these notice and everything, saying that there should not be any fraudulent intention of filing H1Bs when you don't have an offer that is prevalent at this point of filing the, or even doing the registration. So they have to be balancing it out and be careful and, diligent in what, as an employer, because there is a lot of compliance when it comes to a company. That is always, I always tell my clients, companies should be on top of any, any president or any employees. It's always the company that overcome, because that's the credibility of the company has to be the main, like, whatever the employer should be looking for.
Uh, can this executive order get challenged in courts?
So, yeah, so as I said, it's not completely cannot be done, because, it, the president has a lot of cover to do
I
that.
know. Yeah.
Like, and that too, particularly in situation like this, when there is something, they can bring it up. So completely, it's a very good question, actually. It's not completely challenged, but there are, parts where, like, that can be challenged. Say that, dependent for no reason why they have to be, like, they are not in, like, they are not going to be for the main purpose of this executive order was to, like, just to, of the, US economy and the workers. So what are they associated with? And that is a big challenge that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are different parts where that can be, like, challenged, but not completely as an executive order. I would doubt that cannot be done.
So, like, what happens to those who picked in this year's H1B lottery system? Like, will it, how it works? Like,
Yeah, as I said, like, consular processing H1Bs, like people from India or any other countries who has been picked up, they would have been eligible to come by, October. So they usually go for the visa stamping in September, but now they have to wait till even end of December, and then, there is going to be a huge rush, because with all these, backlogged, and who was not able to do that, and so they will be on a huge, rush, and then they have to do that, and we can assume it's going to be even months when they can get an appointment for an interview. So almost like they will be losing their, 6 months. And one thing is, like, okay, even if there is an offer, so much, only based on that the H1B is filed for. So how long already they have to wait? A client, an offer has to wait for, from October. On top of it, if it's again extended 6 months of time period for them to come back, how long, the offer is going to be valid, and how the employer is going to, just to hold on to that offer. That's a very big question, right? At the time of filing, they would have asked, said that, the employee, once the visa is approved and the consulate and the stamping is done, they will be available to work from October 1st. But there is no, like, a foreseeable time. There is no time that we are looking at, even in January or February, because there is going to be a lot more of, yeah, and it's going to be delayed further on. So it's a very, hard time. The employers, investing their money towards the filing fees and everything, they are going to face in this.
So, how does the new order impact green card application for which, like I-140 has been processed? Like,
See, the I-140 is, there is nothing as of now that has been, said about whatever the I-140s has been approved for. But as I said, they were, it was mentioned in that, there is going to be an interim order where even though for already approved AB3 and AB2s, how, whenever we do the filing, the recruitment process involves how it was open for the market for the U.S. Local people as citizens to be applied for. So it's going to be very strict moving forward. Definitely, the recruitment measures, what the employer did. So we have specific measure that has been taken to be before the filing is to be done. And there is a question as well, which asks, is there any in the last 6 months that any other U.S. worker has been displaced for this particular position. So there is also the executive order talks about even this question is going to be coming up even in a labor condition application, which is part of the H1Bs, right? So that will also be there. And so as a secondary displacement, say that the client position place has to be posted of the LCA. So maybe there might be frequent checks that can happen in the third party client where they come have to prove that this position was not replaced with a local US citizen actually. So it's going to be very stringent moving forward. That's what the executive memo says. It's really like looking forward. It is scary to even
it's
like
scary
just
and really sad also. Like, and so moving to our final question, like USA suspends H1B visa. With this suspension, how it will impact the Indian IT companies?
There is, a lot more, like, see, even now, as I was saying, like, I was just looking into it into my screen before the call as well, so there is so much of business and, that is going to be impacted with this executive memo. So it has a very huge impact. It's not one or two, people that is going to be impacted with this. So it's a huge impact on the IT consulting companies.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for all your answers, and thank you so much for your valuable time, though. And once again, thank you from Nishita Media. And we want to share in few words to Nishita Media. It would be great for us. And have a wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. See just we had a long day with the new H1B deadline that's coming up and everything. But one thing is, I really, thanks for inviting me to speak on this. It's an opportunity for me as well as to express my opinion. Because we do it with a lot of passion and just with all the efforts and everything being done towards each filing. For me it's very I take every pride and passion to do that. So in that case so expressing what I feel and opinion about it. And so one thing towards all these all your viewers is there is something see, I also involve myself into all these emergency NRI people who are involved. So unfortunately there is a lot of stress that is involved in the non-immigrant visas and everything they already go through for the last few years in particular. So there is limit of what you can do. And so apart from that, if you're going to have to go back to your country, I wouldn't say it's very unfair for me to just say that just போங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியாது actually.
கண்டிப்பா.
Right, that's very unfair. But at the same time, if that is what it has to happen, I would say don't lose your sleep or physical health towards the visa as a major concern of you. Still there are opportunities in India as well. I don't limit to India alone, but again, just think about it on the other angle as well. And whatever state is allowed, be proactive to make yourself, to be understanding what it is, each individual has its own, questions and everything. Always discuss with that in a proper, not about googling and just, everybody's situation is not going to be the same. Just find a legal advice and then take some measures towards it and do it.
Thank you so much, and thanks for a valuable time. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Okay, just a sec. Yeah, I'm just okay. Yes. Okay.